This painting depicts Satta Peak, located between Yui and the next station, Okitsu, and Mount Fuji as seen from there. The distance between Kambara-juku and Yui-juku is about 4 kilometers, but there is another 3.5 kilometers before reaching the steep slope leading up to Satta Peak. From there, it is another 1.5 kilometers of climbing the steep slope to reach the pass. Nishikido is located at the junction with National Route 396, which is the western end of Kambara-juku. About 3 kilometers from there is a Ichirizuka and a Masugata in Yui, and a little further on was the Honjin. Now it is Honjin Park, and the Tokaido Hiroshige Museum is located there. Directly opposite is the birthplace of Yui Shisetsu, and the whole area has been developed to give the impression that this was the Tokaido. Crossing the Yui River, you will find JR Yui Station, but from here, the Tokaido Road veers to the right and enters a small path. As you can see on the map, Kambara-juku and JR Kambara Station, as well as Yui-juku and JR Yui Station, are both located quite far from the center of the post towns. It is clear that the construction of the railway during the Meiji period was very unpopular among the residents. If you follow this path for a while, you will find the Koike residence, which was the residence of the local chieftain at the time, on your right, and the Museum of Lighting a little further on. During the Edo period, this area prospered as a salt-producing town, and the scenery of the old Tokaido Road still remains today. The Koike residence is open to the public in spring, displaying traditional Hina dolls, mainly Churashibina, which are traditional to this region. A little further on, at Nishikurazawa, the road splits into two. If you go up the hill on the right, you will reach Satta Peak, and if you turn left, you will reach the coastal road. However, the coastal road on the left is currently closed to pedestrians in the direction of Okitsu. Let's overlay a map from the Geographical Survey Institute of Japan that shows the elevation differences. You can see that the slightly narrower light blue road along the coast runs along the water's edge. However, this coastal road was also used as the Tokaido until 1655. However, it was a dangerous road that had to be passed quickly when the tide was low and the waves were calm. For this reason, it was also known as Oya Shirazu, Ko Shirazu, meaning neither parents nor children know. It also means everybody for himself, and God for us all. Tokugawa Ieyasu, who disliked the dangerous coastal road, opened a mountain road through the Satta Peak for the Korean envoys in 1655. In 1682, a slightly longer detour was completed, and it became the official Tokaido. It is marked by a thick blue line. The Tokaido road over this pass becomes quite steep from the Nishikurazawa Fork, but it is now possible to reach Okitsu-juku regardless of sea conditions. Nowadays, it offers spectacular views from the Satta Peak and a fun hiking trail through mandarin orange orchards. This is a picture of the Tokaido stretched out into a single road. Enjoy a visual hike from the Kurosawa Fork in the road, over the Satta Peak, and onto the Okitsu River. It's hard to believe that before this road was opened, people walked along the coastline with cliffs looming overhead. Now, let's take a closer look at Hiroshige's painting. Mount Fuji is depicted in white at the end of a nearly vertical cliff, and the mountain range continuing slightly to the right of Mount Eidaka is connected to the mountains of the Izu Peninsula. White sailboats are rhythmically arranged in Suruga Bay, giving a sense of perspective. On the cliff to the left, two travelers are depicted enjoying the spectacular view with their hands raised, while right next to them, a woodcutter carrying firewood climbs the peak without paying any attention to the view. This contrast is typical of Hiroshige's style, and it's very enjoyable. The exaggerated rise of the mountains and cliffs is similar to the way Mount Hakone is depicted, and the contrast between the ruggedness of the mountains and the calmness of the sea is also wonderful. Hiroshige used this painting as a reference to depict the Satta Peak in Yui. However, 24 years after Hiroshige released this painting, the 1854 Ansei earthquake caused the coastal cliffs to collapse and the coastline directly below the Satta Peak to rise, making the dangerous old Tokaido coastline easily passable. Hiroshige died 4 years later. In this painting by Yui, the gradation of the sea is reversed between the first and second prints. The second print has a weaker sense of perspective. The reissue edition depicts a tea house located a little further down the road from the Nishikurasawa Fork. You can almost hear people saying, "Wow, we used to walk here when the weather was nice." The signboard reads, "Kurosawa's famous turban shell pot roast," and this shop, Fujiya Bagakutai, still remains today. The current owner of the shop told me that during the Meiji restoration, Yamaoka Tetsu, who was being pursued by government troops, removed the floorboards and fled along the coast. This area around Kurosawa served as an inn for travelers before the Satta Peak, with several inns in the vicinity. The Gasho edition depicts travelers walking along the Yui River on the west side of Yui-juku. The current terrain is exactly like the feeling of this painting. The poem edited also depicts the view of Yui River from Yui-juku. The mountain in the background is Satta Peak. Hokusai's Tokaido depicts the salt-making work that was prevalent in this area. In addition, this painting from the 36 Views of Mount Fuji series is said to depict Mount Fuji in the background, with the bustling salt production scene in Yui in the foreground. Until the Edo period, the sea from Okitsu to the area just before the Fuji River across the Satta Peak was called Tagano-ura, which is why the title of this painting is Sketch of Tagano-ura. I actually went here. This is the scenery from the observation deck just over the peak. This photo was taken in 2008, so the road layout may be slightly different now. However, it is quite similar to the scenery depicted by Hiroshige. Seeing it this way, I am once again impressed by Hiroshige's artistic skill. The 4-lane elevated road on the right is the Tomei Expressway. The 4 lanes inside it are National Route 1, and the innermost lane is the JR Tokaido line. 2 of Japan's busiest roads run underneath this bridge. Please take a look at the mandarin orange tree I saw on a slope near the Satta Peak. Combined with National Route 1 and the Tomei Expressway below, approximately 100,000 vehicles pass through this area every day. The exhaust fumes and dust that have climbed up the slope have caused the mandarin orange trees to become in this condition. Take a look at Google Maps Street View, which shows the opposite perspective from Hiroshige's view. I colored the Tokaido orange. Looking at it this way, it is astonishing to see the destructive power of humans, who have expanded the coastline at the foot of the mountains, built roads with countless wave-breaking blocks, and dug holes in the mountains. At the same time, the black-painted mandarin oranges seem to be appealing to us. Okitsu-juku is just over the pass.